Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Moonbeam and Redpill Rooster channels. We are back for week 4 recap with the Astrology Tarot and our analysis of the P. Diddy trial. Can you believe, Luke, that we're at week 4 or the end of week 4?
Right. Yeah. It's kind of like we've hit the halfway point as far as everyone is concerned. If this really does turn out to be an 8-week trial, then hey,
Yeah.
we are at halftime.
That's a good way of putting it. We're at halftime, and we were just talking a little bit about before we went live, rather, that it's a lot. It is a lot of heavy energy keeping up with this trial. Have
It
you been
is.
feeling that like week to week?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I'm kind of tuning into it every day and seeing what's going on and trying to see what's being said inside the courtroom. That Lauren Conlon, she's done a fantastic job of getting out there and
Yeah.
keeping us updated on a day-to-day
Yeah.
basis. And then you hear a lot of other stuff that's like the rumors and all the rumor mill stuff going around, trying to discern what's true, what's not, kind of
Mhm.
reading all the sources of information and then putting it together and going, okay, well, this one didn't say anything about that. Is that real? So it's like a combination of trying to figure out what's real, what's fake, or just hearsay, and then just all the details of the craziness that is involved and that is being talked about in this trial. So yeah, pretty heavy.
Yeah, definitely. It is a lot of craziness, as we're gonna continue to get into. And before we do that, you guys, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channels. And you can check Luke and I's links in the description box of this video. Luke has his book, Confessions of a Conspiracy Theorist. Don't forget to take your red pills, available on Amazon.com by RP Rooster on there. And highly recommend it, you guys. I finished reading it recently. And it's so funny, Luke. Many of the things that you've talked about in your book are starting to come out more and more in the
Yeah.
day-to-day news as not just conspiracy, but actual facts and
Yes.
happenings.
Yeah, last night was wild because Trump retruthed that one account that said that
Right.
Joe Biden isn't real, that it's been a clone or a bot
Yeah.
ever since 2020, that he was executed in 2020, which I
Right.
believe to be true. And I
Right.
don't think that Trump would just casually drop or retruth something like this if he didn't already have the intel behind it to say, I'm going to be able to prove this. So I think there's a lot of anti-Trumpers out there and people who just hate him for being Trump that
Right.
will look at this and think, oh, well, he's a con artist or whatever. But anybody else that, believes that Trump is telling us the actual real deal and has been
Mhm.
for quite a while, looks at this and goes, whoa, that's wild.
Right.
For a sitting president to sit there and say, yeah, by the way, the last guy, or to retruth, he didn't say it himself, but he retruthed it. So it's just as
Mhm.
good as him saying it, as far as I'm concerned. Basically saying, yeah, by the way, the last guy, he's dead and gone. He's been dead for 5 years. And yeah, it's clones and robots that are and soulless beings that have been managing the auto pen this whole time.
Yes.
It's wild.
Absolutely wild. And I want to get more into that with you, Luke, in a little bit, because we also had President Trump this past week actually comment on the first time publicly on the P. Diddy trial. So Trump will be a part of today's shows. Hold your horses, you guys. Also, want to mention, very exciting, you can check out my links in the description box below. And Sunny and I have these new astrological crystal kits now available, launching today on the scorplingshop.com. Something really cool that we've just put together. And we're actually going to be starting a new series on Beyond Mystic, a new crystal show. So we'll be getting more into the crystals. You guys can go check that out. So if you'd like to check out your sun, moon, or rising astrological crystal kit intuitively made by Sunny and myself, you can check those out at thescorplingshop.com. Do you like to work with crystals at all, Luke?
I love crystals. I love, crystals, rocks, stones,
Yeah.
whatever you want to call them. I absolutely love all the different crystals that are out there. I've got a bunch that I just keep in my office, and in fact, I've got one with me right now. It's a little piece of howlite,
Oh,
good for
very nice.
communication and keeping things light.
Mhm.
So, sometimes I'll be in meetings and I'll just have one in my hand just as something to hold on to and play with if I, feel like, all right, I want a little bit of this energy or that energy on any
Yeah.
particular day. And my kids love them. So I might pick up a couple of those for my kids too, because
Yeah.
they come into my office and they just start picking up my stuff, and they, it's like becomes a toy. So, I'll get them
Yeah,
when I need.
it's awesome. Yeah, it's so cool how kids are so drawn to the crystals. I noticed that when I used to work at a crystal store for like 4 or 5 years, when kids would come in, they'd be so drawn to it and they would just say things about the crystals. "Oh, well, this one does this, and this
Mhm.
one said this to me." It's, fascinating. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we love the crystals. So, thank you guys so much for joining us. And Luke, I actually want to start with rewinding for a moment because we're
Okay.
at week 4 and it's kind of been, and I'd like to hear your opinion on this, but in my perspective so far, it's been a lot of the same so far.
Yeah.
Week to week, it's been a lot of the same, which not to put aside what's been coming forward because there's very damning testimony for sure coming forward against P. Diddy, but it's been like assistant after assistant, associate after associate, friend after friend, ex lover. I think just one main ex lover so far coming
Mhm.
forward, talking about the very intense abuse and psychopathy, is that the right word? In
Yeah.
my opinion, of Diddy. But we have to rewind to, okay, what's he being charged for? Right. So
Mhm.
P. Diddy is facing multiple charges. This is what this whole trial is about. He's being charged federally for number one, racketeering conspiracy. Number two, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion. And number three, transportation to engage in prostitution. And of course, he's pleaded not guilty to all of these charges. What do you think so far with those three charges, Luke? Where we're at? Do you think that the prosecution is showcasing a good case? What do you think?
Well, my hope is that they are still really setting this stage of, laying out the color of this person's character, right?
Right.
And it does seem like it has been ramping up a little bit
Mhm.
every week. But if the trial really does come down to only be 8 weeks, then
Right.
over the next 3 weeks, they really need to ramp up the rhetoric, the smoking gun of this whole thing, because in my opinion, I think, any defense team out there is going to look at this and go, "Yes, he's a bad guy in terms of his relationships. He abused her, he beat her,
Mhm.
but that's not what the charges are for." He raped
Right.
her. Ho All of those horrible things, the terrible things that we're hearing about in these stories, even if the judge and jury says, "Yeah, all of that's true," that's not what he's being charged for. So,
Right.
um, I'm really looking for them to paint to get to the smoking gun, right? And
Mhm.
and I think all of this conversation so far, may be leading us, and they really need to start next week with
Yeah.
getting into the discussion of, were you afraid for your life? Um, why were you afraid for your life? Were you ever threatened with death? And I mean, it sounds like from some of the testimony already, him saying, you don't want to say that, people disappear for saying things like that. I mean,
Right.
that alludes to, death or disappearing in any way, generally tends to be pretty negative. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I think they are getting there, but if I think that if they stay the course of just continuing to do character color or character assassination of him,
Mhm.
I think it still falls short of saying, "Yeah, you were human trafficking." Where they need to tie this in is
Mhm.
they need to prove that the things that he was doing were tied into his business, and that
Right.
somehow this led to his empire making more money. Um,
Mhm.
if they don't do that, I mean, is it? illegal to abuse people and rape people? Yeah, absolutely. But that's not what he's here for. So uh,
Right.
if they don't, put a bow on this thing, I think it's going to leave some questions and some doubt in perhaps some of the jurors' minds. And again, they only need one. They only need
Yep.
one to just be like, yeah, I'm just not convinced. And then you've got a hung jury. So
Right.
yeah, that's where I'm at with this. I think they need to really start to get past, all right, you've set the stage here already. Everybody gets that, this guy scared these people. He
Mhm.
he kept them hostage to some degree, right? But again, it's got to come back to the racketeering, it's got to come back to the human trafficking, and it's got to come back to,
Right.
prostitution across state lines.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. And for those of you who may not know, racketeering, which is the first charge, this is an AI overview, overview definition. Racketeering is a coordinated scheme, often by a group, to repeatedly generate profit through illegal activities like extortion, fraud, or threats.
Mhm.
Interesting. I think some of the things so far brought forth kind of do comply with racketeering, but I agree with you, Luke, that we need some more substantial things here.
They've got to
Racketeering,
show
very
that it
serious.
generates profit.
Exactly. Yeah. Also, the sex trafficking. I do think that what they've showcased with Casey so far can go under sex trafficking because she was being told by Diddy that, if you don't do this, if you don't fuck this guy in front of me, then I'm going to
Right.
destroy all your music. Like he would say stuff like that, which is a form of
Or
coercion that is right, abusive. So I think, okay, sex trafficking, we have seen a little bit of that so far. And then also transportation to engage in prostitution. So Cassie could also fall under that. So but again, these are very technical terms that you're right, Luke. It's at the end of the day, it's a jury that's going to be deciding the fate of what's going to happen here. And I think they have to make it very clear that it's not just Diddy as an abuser and a psychopath, but yes, he's actually making money from doing all these crazy things here,
Mhm.
right? MJ, hello. Nice to see you in the chat. So, should we maybe pull some cards? I was going to call you Diddy. Oh my God. Luke, should we maybe pull some cards on is this going to last for 8 weeks? Is it going to go longer? I just, as you were talking there, I kind of had a feeling like maybe this is actually going to be going longer. And that's interesting because when I first found out about the Diddy trial, I guess this was last year when we all first found out about it. I looked at the astrology of this time that the Diddy trial is happening in, and we currently have Pluto retrograde. Pluto, the planet of criminality and the dark side of life, the ruling planet of Scorpio. Pluto
Mhm.
retrograde, I think, can actually be really good for a trial because we feel Pluto's influence stronger. It's really good for digging deep, doing trials. But then again, retrogrades can delay things and make them longer and not as quick. So, would you want to pull some cards with me on
Yeah.
what's the best way for us to ask this? What what time of year will this be over, or is this gonna be longer than 8 weeks?
Yeah, let's ask, is this going to be longer than
Is
8
this
weeks?
yeah. Are we looking at a trial that's gonna be longer than 8 weeks?
I was surprised that the, um, defense attempted to get 2, mistrials this last week too and got denied
Right.
twice, so
Mhm.
we can talk about that as well.
Yeah, oh, I didn't realize that they tried twice.
Yeah, it was both Tuesday and
Interesting.
Wednesday.
Mhm. Okay. Do you wanna share first, or should I share first?
I'll share.
Okay.
So, right out of the gate, I got the King of Pentacles upside down in reverse, so,
Mm.
uh I would look at this as, there's a component to this, obviously monetarily intertwined, where again, they're going to have to prove that this um, actually ties into them making some sort of a profit. And with this being in reverse, I would say that perhaps it's going to take more time than 8 weeks in order for them to actually be able
Mm.
to do that.
Mhm.
Followed shortly thereafter, we got the 6 of Pentacles, or is that the yeah, that's
Wow.
6. So we got the
Yeah.
6 of Pentacles here in reverse, and, you know, when this is right side up, this is a very generous, benevolent card, and so perhaps over the next couple of weeks, we're gonna be looking at how, this guy actually extracted money from people that were trusting him, took money
Mhm.
from people that were in his circle, and so I'm starting to lean more towards, yes,
Mhm.
and I would say the Justice card, right side up, to
Right.
answer our question, I would say that this is a
Wow.
yes, that it will take longer than 8 weeks in order to, uh, um, what's the word I'm looking for? To bring justice.
Mhm. Wow, we got the Justice card. Holy
Yeah,
guacamole.
that's serious.
Okay.
That's a heavy hitter.
That's some serious business for sure, and interesting because I also got 2 reverse cards and then an upright card.
Interesting.
Interesting. And as I pulled these cards, it's making my head feel a little bit, wonky and all over the place. So the Page of Cups reversed. We've also got the Hanged Man reversed. Okay, which that card always trips me out a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's one of the weird ones, eh?
I always
That's
love
weird.
when the Hanged Man comes in reversed because he's right side up.
Yeah. He looks like, "Oh, that looks like how he should be," but actually, that's him upright,
Yeah.
right? So interesting. Those 2 reversed, interesting together, and then the Victory card. 6 of Wands. So we both got at the end a card upright. For you, you got Justice. For me, I got 6 of Wands, which I feel like both of those are saying there's a positive outcome of some
Mhm.
sort or a yes to our
Mhm.
question. Interesting that I'm picking up with the Page of Cups and the Hanged Man reversed together that it feels like I'm picking up this is not set in stone yet. I don't feel the timeline is totally set in stone. I think it's kind of being confirmed with every day that goes on that there is a group of people that has been in control of what's going on and how things are playing out, right? So
Mhm.
maybe that said group of people, and I think it's actually a positive group of people, I'm not talking about a negative group of people, maybe they're seeing how this is playing out to the public piece by piece. I'm almost picking that up. It's like a piece by piece of okay, now we're going to release this information that might totally, about people's world perspective, right? The hangman
Mhm.
is about our perspective, right? So, okay, how are they taking the perspective? We've brought out all the assistants, we've brought out friends, we've brought out Cassie. I feel like they're actually doing it this way, Luke. How they've been doing it, they're doing it this way on purpose
Mhm.
to see how everybody's going to react to it.
Mhm.
And they're this positive group of people, white hats, whatever you want to call them, they're happy with how it's going so far. It's like I'm seeing spirit go layer after layer, and it's about to get real. I'm hearing spirit say. And I feel like there's going to be a pivot where something really shocking is going to come up and it pivots and it makes it have to actually go longer. And it might even go a lot longer.
That would not surprise me at all. I mean, again, I think back to that O.J. Simpson trial, and how long
Right.
was that trial? I remember it seemed like months back in the day.
Right.
Um, like, it really felt like it was, 3 to 6 months that whole thing was dragged out, and, I just wonder, how do you determine how long a trial is going to be beforehand when, not all the pieces are necessarily being, or the cards are being showed, or like, I
Yeah.
love this comment, maybe the missing victim shows up causing an extension.
Ooh, okay, that's interesting. Sorry to interrupt you, Luke, but like the Page of Cups and the Hangman are both associated with Pisces, and
Mhm.
Pisces is like missing people. or missing things,
Mm. And
right?
children.
Possibly kind of, and children.
Yeah. When you get
Yeah.
that page of cups there, that's like 12 and unders, so I wonder
Right.
if that will come about, and if over the next week or two, um, the prosecution starts to tie in actual money, funds. I mean, they touched on it slightly with the whole $20,000 threat that he extorted from Cassie's mom, and then he gave it back
Mhm.
to her. So, I mean, did the guy have something to do with money in this scenario? Yeah, but then he kind of
Mhm.
gave it back. So, how does that factor into the whole defense of the argument? Yeah.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Anastasia here says, "Hi guys, surely this is all about the trail of blackmail, the money he stole, and inevitably trafficking of minors. Thanks, guys. Much love." Yeah, I mean, if you're like Luke and I and you've been studying conspiracies, if you're into the alternative, we know this rabbit hole goes even deeper than what has been shared so far.
Yeah.
Right. And this is actually making me want to bring up, Luke, you shared with me this past week somebody that we haven't seen in a very long time pop up, Tila Tequila,
Oh my gosh.
right?
Yeah, that's
Oh,
right.
sorry. Let me bring this up one second, you guys, to share. Okay, I'll bring it up like, how did you find this clip? Did it just pop up for you?
It popped up. I was searching the Diddy trial, and, somehow that fell into the feed. And I was like, oh my gosh, I
Right.
haven't seen her in
So
ages.
yeah, so how freaking random. I can't remember, Luke, what the last year it was when I saw Tila Tequila, but I remember a while ago she was speaking out on something. And I thought, oh wow, Tila Tequila. And this was before the, 2020, the whole pandemic. I saw a clip, oh wow, she's speaking out. And then nothing from her, crickets. And
Mhm.
then I'll play this video that you shared and it ties in, you guys, of how deep this rabbit hole goes, right?
She's muted on that.
Oh, okay, just one sec.
Exposure on like Illuminati, the all-seeing eye, when they do this little like when they do the symbol, because a lot of in the media, I don't know if they still doing that today in the land of the living, but I know what I experienced when I went down there. They call themselves the elites, and what it means is the elites of like the satanic kingdom, and they do this thing with the all-seeing eye. As you notice, in the past I had that all-seeing eye too, because I had to become one of them in order to come back and expose them. You see, so this wickedness, and for a while they're trying to keep me silent, but I'm like, wait a minute, this Satan's a liar, because he just wants me to be silent. Because if we keep living in today's world, in the land of the living, and there's no justice anywhere, like where's the God of justice, right? It's because I kept silent all these years, but I'm not gonna keep silent no more. But what goes on down there in Hollywood, I don't know if it's still going on today, because I don't want to accuse nobody. But what I saw, I pray that everybody out there repents, because the kingdom of heaven is at hand. In these they have lots of sex child trafficking rings, and they even have their own churches, but they're very satanic churches, and they do abominations. They sodomize each other. I'm not going to get into details because it's so traumatizing to what I saw and experienced down there. But the more power you have, the more fame you get, the more depraved things you have to do. So I don't know if they still do that today, like I said, but God our Father knows, God in heaven knows, the cloud of witnesses knows. So I pray, Heavenly Father, that if these things still go on out there, all of the world, all these elites, whatever they're trying to do like this, to be quiet, that you will bring exposure to them and bring swift justice to the children's lives that were sacrificed, the children that are molested, because they often, they were even like molesting 3-year-olds, and then they're asking me like, can we go even like lower, meaning like, can we have sex with a baby? And it was just so disgusting, guys. This is why I'm so traumatized, because like, oh, I can't believe, it's very traumatizing. I can't even talk about it because it's so nasty. But in the Illuminati world, Hollywood, if you're still doing that today, I pray that Lord Jesus Christ.
Oh my holy Toledo.
Right.
Jeez Louise. So, yeah, it goes a lot deeper than just the abuse allegations that have been coming forward from P. Diddy's associates, which it's not to say that those aren't a really big deal because these things, Luke, it's day after day. And this past week, it was kind of a little bit, I found it to be a little bit of a grind because every single person that worked with Diddy, my God,
Right.
their stories, person after person. We started off the week with Capricorn Clark, who's Diddy's former assistant. She testified, and all these people are very emotional when they take the stand. Many of them are very scared when they take the stand as well. She talked about how she was forced to take a 5-day long polygraph test by Diddy at one point because he was so paranoid about her. He brought her to a particular place. I forget where it was, but kept her there for 5 days and did a 5-day long polygraph test. She talked about being so stressed from her work with Diddy that she developed alopecia. She talked about receiving no breaks. She never got her overpay. She was one of the assistants that had to clean the baby oil that was everywhere in the hotel rooms after the freak offs. She said that with the Kid Cudi incident, that she was in the car with Diddy when Diddy went to Kid Cudi's house. He was talking about how he wanted to kill Kid Cudi. He had a gun in his lap. She was totally freaked out. And she saw Diddy beat Cassie very, very violently as well during the relationship. Her testimony, I was keeping up with it from Lauren Conlon's videos. It seemed really, really intense. Wow. And that was starting off the week on Tuesday. And Tuesday she testified.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything in the past week that really stood out to you, Luke?
Yeah.
Anything anybody said or just in general? I mean, there's a lot.
A few things. The whole story about Mia and the other woman paddleboarding out into the ocean to get away from Diddy in the middle of a storm. So the guy is back on the beach, pacing the beach like a lion, and they're out on paddle boards. I mean, you gotta, I mean, that really to me paints a picture, and it kind of gives me chills, to think about that. If you're picturing this in like a sketch form, like they have all the court photos there.
Right.
I mean, imagine two women paddling out in the ocean in the middle of a storm to get away from a guy on the beach.
Oh
I
my
mean,
God.
if that doesn't tell you how scared these people were of this guy, I mean, that's for your life. You're willing to risk being out in the ocean in the middle of a storm rather than be back on land with this psychopath. I mean, that paints a stark picture. So
Yeah.
I'm going to be looking for the prosecution to really lay into that conversation of, were you scared for your life? Did you ever hear rumors about P. Diddy involved in other people's murders? Right? Because that's something that the conspiracy community is that P. Diddy was involved in other people's untimely demise. And right now they're just or not just murders. Right now they're just rumors. they're just rumors, right? But I mean, I would imagine that if you're that close to these people and this guy is giving you a polygraph test for 5 days straight in an empty building in the middle of nowhere, what did she know? What was he afraid that she might know? What was he afraid that she might have heard? Because it clearly goes beyond him being afraid that she's going to go out there and say, oh, he beats his girlfriend and does all these horrible things to her during a sex party, because he does that in front of other people, right? There was people that have witnessed him beating her. And I mean, so that just goes to show you it was beyond that, right?
Right.
He wouldn't just care that, hey, somebody's going to know that she saw me beat her. I mean, how many people have seen him do that? A bunch.
Right.
So it's something that's next level. And I wonder if it has to do with, some of these long standing rumors. I mean, I'm talking decades, into the
Right.
late 90s. Rumors about the untimely demise of people like Alicia, right? I think that was her
Yep.
name. Alicia, so talented.
Alicia. Yep.
Am I saying the right name?
Aaliyah. Aaliyah.
Aaliyah. Aaliyah, yes,
Aaliyah.
there we go.
Yeah.
Tupac, yeah, there we go. Thanks, John,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And now even all that conversation coming out about, did Diddy and Tupac have a relationship? We've all seen, well, I don't know, how many people out there have seen the video of Tupac when he was 17 before he was, the hardcore rapper that he
Mhm.
became? But I mean, he was like a fruity um, liberal arts student.
Yeah.
I mean, there was just a lot of hand movements and
Mhm.
a lot of this didn't
Right.
sound hardcore at all, right? And so that whole thing has come into the picture, where we've discussed many times in this community where the rap community, you know, the rumor is that they're all gay. I mean, just to put it
Right.
plainly, you look at Notorious B.I.G., the video that he came out, and the star of that video, the woman that everyone thought that was his girlfriend, right?
Mhm.
That was Biggie Smalls' girlfriend in that video. Well, you look back on it now and it's like, oh, she's trans. And you even
Wow.
have the video, you have the one little scene in that video where the woman goes into a men's restroom, goes up to a urinal and stands in between two guys. They were telling us back then that
Yeah.
this is, with all of the women that are out there, the beautiful women in the world, you picked, this essentially
Mhm.
trans person and played it off as like, oh, this is just a woman and it's a joke, that she goes and stands at the urinal with the men. But now it's all coming back and into conversation. Like, were these guys all gay? And like, we just
Right.
didn't pick up on it. And the whole hardcore, rap life, you talking about drugs, sex, and women, was that just a cover
Mhm.
for, this other um, operation or cultural thing that they were trying to push out there in the late 90s? And then Tupac died, and I think they backed off on that, and now fast forward 20 years later and here we are again, where now, I mean, the whole trans
Yep.
agenda is moved full force forward.
Mhm. And isn't it interesting sometimes how there's people that project a personality or project a character outwards that is actually the opposite of who they are on the inside?
Hmm.
Right? That seems to be happening with some of these rap figures. We've seen that in recent years as well with, Bruce Jenner becoming Caitlyn Jenner, right? Kind of the epitome of the masculine, right? An Olympian. What was the do you know, Luke, the title of because he wasn't just a regular Olympian, he won, like, the
Yeah,
biggest thing you could the triathlon, is that what it's called? Or he was a triathlete? I forget what the exact word is,
I
you guys,
think he
but
won the Olympics for diving, if I'm
yeah,
not mistaken. And the guy was an Adonis. I mean,
yeah, he could
every
do it
dude,
all.
and he looked phenomenal. Every guy was like,
Right.
man, I wish I looked like that, just
Yeah.
shredded, lean, phenomenal athlete. Yeah, it's very interesting to consider
Yeah,
back now.
for sure, and very interesting that 50 Cent has been ca and I love 50 Cent. I don't know him personally, but I just really like his energy, and he seems to be laughing through this whole Diddy trial on his Instagram, on his X. Even before it started, he was commenting, making jokes about Diddy, how he's gay, how a lot of these rappers are gay. He didn't wanna have anything to do with that, and we're not saying that there's anything wrong with being gay, you guys, but it's just interesting that there's these people putting out this character, right, of being very, very masculine when actually not so much. And 50 Cent was mentioned by Capricorn Clark, Diddy's recent previous assistant. And this is a clip of 50 Cent recently talking about he's making a documentary about Diddy. Were you aware of this?
I heard rumors about this. Is this tied to Netflix?
I think he's making, yeah, a Netflix documentary called
Okay.
Diddy Do It? Did he do it?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is a little clip of him with Entertainment Tonight from recently.
Speaking of, in particular, Netflix docuseries that you've been working on, Diddy Do It?
Right.
You've been saying for years that you feel you knew Diddy's character.
Right.
Yet you said you weren't a part of that lifestyle. You weren't going to the parties. So what makes you so absolutely sure that these kinds of allegations that we've seen against him are true?
Well, I'm surprised by the allegations, as surprised as everyone else is. Like, I didn't make the allegations. I didn't tell people to say these things. It comes out, I see it in the news like everyone else. But I did feel uncomfortable with the way he would present the idea of going to these projects.
To come party with me.
Yeah. And then that swayed me away from it, just that alone.
So you didn't realize
as much stuff is coming. Like, when I seen today, it was allegations of 3 men that said he drugged them, and it's a long time, to be honest with you. Like, when people don't remember being violated for 20 years, it makes me feel a little hard.
What are your thoughts on the allegations against Jay-Z?
That was interesting. When I was saying things, not knowing exactly what I was saying, but I was going with, like, where's Jay at? He's mad quiet. Like while the Puffy thing was going on. But it's obvious now that his team was being made aware that he was in those allegations also. So I hope it works out, because with his family, the things that go on internally is that those accusations are crazy.
And he's been speaking out on this for quite a while. I think there's been maybe some kind of feud going on for years between 50 Cent and Diddy. And I follow 50 Cent on Instagram and X, and I just laugh. This is a post he did from last week. What the fuck Diddy did to Kid Cudi dog over the girl, man? LOL. And he's just laughing at the gym, promoting his G-Unit brand. And then this was a few days ago. Oh my goodness, itty bitty Diddy. He jokes about how Diddy has a small wiener, supposedly, wants me dead. I have to lay low. I think I'm going to hide out at the playoff game tonight. LOL, GUnitsbrand.com. So wow. What? And then also we're going to get to President Trump talking about, he was being asked about Diddy. Is he going to pardon Diddy? And 50 Cent commented on that on his Instagram, says he's going to contact Trump to tell him the bad things Diddy said about him. This was, where did I see this here? This is from an article. The fact that Trump didn't immediately shut down the idea has everyone side-eyeing their timelines. Could a presidential pardon actually be in play for Diddy? Well, not if 50 Cent has anything to say about it. And trust us, he does. Diddy's longtime nemesis, Curtis 50 Cent Jackson, is not here for the idea of any last-minute favors from the Oval Office. According to sources close to 50 and honestly his own Instagram, he's planning to do what he does best, play chess behind the scenes. Reportedly, 50 Cent is preparing to personally reach out to Trump, quietly but directly, to persuade him not to issue a pardon for his former rival. What do you think about this, Luke? Should we maybe pull some cards on 50 Cent? He seems to be a positive influence at the moment. He doesn't seem to be directly involved in Diddy or any of this weird Epstein stuff. And if you look at his face, you guys, he's laughing. Like, when I just see, let me find where that is. Oh, here it is.
Yeah.
You can't fake that kind of smile. You can't fake that kind of laughter. We see a lot of these demons and elites smiling about things and fake laughing, and you can tell that it's fake and you can tell that it's evil. I could be wrong, but when I look at 50 Cent, I don't feel like this is a negative energy. This is somebody, for whatever reason, that's genuinely happy about this situation. They're genuinely very happy about something having to do with this situation.
Yeah, that's pure joy. I mean, whatever he's looking at on his phone is tickles him in a great way. He's just elated by whatever it is that he's reading or looking at right there.
Right. Should we maybe pull some cards on what is 50 Cent's true connection to Diddy? Why does he care so much?
Yes, absolutely.
And then that's a good question.
Yes. And then let's pull on Trump, because Trump said that he he hadn't been paying much attention to the trial, which I find a little hard to
Right.
believe. But maybe, you know, it's relative. It's a relative statement. But
Mhm.
I'm curious if Trump said what he said so that more people would pay attention, kind of going,
Right.
wait, is this guy gonna like really pardon this guy? I need to like look at this and
Mhm.
see what's going on here.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's see here. Hmm.
So the question
Interesting.
is
What's
50
the
Cent.
true Yeah, what's the true like what's the truth between 50 Cent and P. Diddy? What's the actual connection there? What's the truth behind their relationship? What do we need to know about that?
Mm,
Interesting. Okay. Is it okay if I share first?
yes.
Okay. I feel like these two go way back. Okay, we're starting off with the Page of Swords, which is a younger energy, a younger person that's highly, highly intelligent. We've also got the Sun card, okay, which is a very positive card, one of the most positive cards in the tarot, but can also represent children. And I'm just feeling intuitively like these two know each other from really far back. Maybe that's childhood, actually, of this lifetime, or it could even be past life relationship where they were children together. But I'm
Mhm,
kind of leaning more towards within this lifetime. They go farther back than
mhm,
just the rap game. There's a child connection there. There's a connection in the type of interesting magical background they have.
hmm,
So Diddy, I'm trying to remember this at the top of my head. I think Diddy's dad or something like went to jail and was really messed up, and he came from a really dark family. Um, of course, that would make sense. A lot of these kind of MK Ultra artists come from families like that, right? But I'm almost
mhm.
getting the sense that 50 Cent might have also come from a situation like that, or it's in his past life lineage. They come from similar situations, but they're like the two different products of what could happen, is what I'm picking up. And there's also something monetarily involved here. So
Mm.
maybe possibly Diddy took something monetarily from 50 Cent. There could be that piece of it too. They could also be why 50 Cent is so happy to see him in the position he's in. Like there's something that was his that got taken away, it feels like. And I feel like the connection goes back, back, back.
I think you're totally right on that. The first card I got was the Lovers in
Mm.
reverse. So this to me indicates that they definitely had a relationship, not gay, but they had a
Right.
relationship that wasn't what it was necessarily presented as, right? So, if
Mm.
this card were upright, then, you know, both of these people would be walking into this relationship with integrity and, you know, honesty. But with it being in reverse, one of these people, at least, wasn't who they were pretending to be. Right?
Right.
And so I don't know if that was Diddy pretending to be a good guy or if that was 50 Cent
Mm.
pretending to be a bad guy.
Right.
And the second card that I got was the 7 of Swords upright. So 50 Cent has been collecting information, right?
Mm.
So swords represent thoughts and words. And so
Mhm.
50 Cent has been quietly, strategically collecting all the information that he's could possibly come across in regards to Diddy. And maybe again, maybe he was, you know, jaded. Maybe he was really pissed off about whatever
Mm.
transpired between him and him and P. Diddy once he figured it out. And then he decided, okay, fuck this dude. I'm going to get it,
Right.
and I'm going to do this in a strategic way, and I'm going to collect all this information one by one.
Mm.
And here we see that the 10 of Wands in reverse, that rather than this thing coming to an end, it's kind of just beginning. It's all
Mm.
just starting to get warmed up. This guy has completed the job and now has other plans here, that this thing isn't the end. It's just getting started. That's how I
Right.
read this card there in that position.
Wow. Very interesting. It feels like a deep bond of some sort.
Right, right. I mean, think about it. All the people, if you've ever been, the hardest feelings that anybody has ever had in their life don't come from some random person at the grocery store stomping on your foot and, screaming at you. It tends to come from somebody that you cared about, you trusted, you thought you had, a connection with, and that they backstabbed you, right? In your
Right.
opinion, right? So it becomes very personal, and it
Mhm.
definitely seems personal. You don't decide that you're going to make a Netflix documentary saying, "Did he do it?"
Did he
and
do it?
gleefully, cheering every time this guy basically gets taken down or his name gets dragged through the mud. It goes deeper than just him knowing some things about Diddy from the outside. Somewhere along the line, I think you're totally right. There was a bond there, and
Mhm.
it didn't turn out the way that 50 thought it was.
Right. And I just want to bring up also, I have 50 cents chart, but I want to take a look too at their synastry chart. I want to see if that can relay any information to us as well. And that resonates what you're saying, Luke. Like this is just the beginning of, actually. It does feel like it's the beginning. And we don't have either of their exact times of birth. We've got P. Diddy born November 4th, 1969, 50 Cent born July 6th, 1975. P. Diddy, a very, very bad expression of a Scorpio, 50 Cent, a Cancer.
Hmm.
Okay, interesting. Take a look at that. Cancer is very sweet. Okay, everybody loves a Cancer. Look,
Mhm.
they've got an almost exact trine between their suns. So trines are positive aspects between elements that are the exact same, right? So Scorpio and Cancer are both water signs. It's almost exact. 12 degrees Scorpio in trine to 13 degree in Cancer. So there's a very strong connection there
Mhm.
where they might have even loved each other for some reason. And that doesn't necessarily mean like in a love relationship, but there's some sort of love there. And it does feel really deep, actually, which is
Mhm.
interesting. So they've got that strong connection. 50's Mars is almost exactly conjunct P. Diddy's Saturn.
Hmm.
So isn't that interesting? That's like two of the malefic planets that can go to battle together. Saturn is about, related to Pluto, has to do with courts and law and order. Mars can energize that. So 50 Cent is a part of the exposing of P. Diddy and his
Mhm.
karma, right? What else have we got here? Oh, wow. And 50 Cent's Pluto is exactly conjunct P. Diddy's Uranus. That's very weird.
And
Wow, that's really weird.
I,
So sorry, what were you gonna say?
I just got this, like picture in my head of 50 Cent popping out and be like, "Surprise, bitch!" Gotcha. Like
Yeah.
you're like,
Yeah.
surprise.
Surprise, motherfucker. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
crazy. That's
right.
like that's okay. If somebody's Pluto is conjunct someone else's other placement, that's who the most powerful person is in the relationship. That's who's gonna win the battle. Because Pluto is power and life and death. So 50 Cent's Pluto exactly on his Uranus is he's going to unexpectedly win the battle, P. Diddy didn't take 50 Cent seriously, probably.
Probably not. And I think it's interesting that they're both water signs. Both of
Yep.
them, both signs are emotional. From my
Mhm.
experience in my life, cancers are by far the most emotional category of men that I've come across. And I've got
Mhm.
tons of cancer, guy friends, and
Mhm.
that emotion drives them at times, and it
Oh, yeah.
really pushes them to do things, good or bad, right? But yeah, I could see that conflict there stemming, and again coming back to this card with the lovers.
Right.
I mean, whatever it was, that connection, deep and emotional.
Yeah, very deep and yeah, and you're right. Cancers are the most emotional and the most in their feelings. And I was trying to explain this in a video that I did recently where the water signs are really weird because Scorpio is actually water and fire. It's Pluto and Mars fire. So Scorpio is kind of like steam,
Wow.
right? And then Cancer is the most grounded water sign, but it's actually the most connected to the water. It's the most connected to its feelings and actually being upset about whatever it's upset about. Whereas Pisces is more aloof, ungrounded. Okay, Pisces, don't hate on me for saying that, but they're the most sensitive, but a lot of the times they don't know why. They don't know
Well,
why.
Pisces are like the most chill too, right?
Right.
Like, can be emotional, but also like sort of blasé and like,
Mhm.
go with the flow, easy. They tend to be very likable. And, with Cancer being the crab, they're the deepest ones in the water. They're all the way down on
Right.
the
Right.
ocean floor there.
That's
So
so true.
deeply
That's
emotional.
Yes, for sure. And 50 Cent does not have a negative astrology chart. We don't have his exact time of birth, but he's a Cancer with his moon in Gemini. I think he got some pretty nice placements in his chart. I just pick up from 50 Cent that he's not a super bad dude. And it's interesting because in the current astrology, we're about to have next week the planet Jupiter enter Cancer, which is going to be the most lucky and positive for Cancer placements.
Hmm.
So I think 50 Cent has a lot of divine protection, even though his Mars is 3 degrees of Taurus. Pluto right now is 3 degrees of Scorpio in an exact square to his Mars. So I think, even though he did that cheeky post, oh my goodness, itty bitty diddy wants me dead. I genuinely think there's probably assassination chumps being put against 50 Cent with Pluto and square to his Mars. But
Hmm.
I do think he is divinely protected by some pretty powerful forces at the moment. And whatever he puts out, if he puts out this Diddy documentary in the next year, I think it's going to be very successful and maybe further the story of what's going on with this trial. And also interesting, I'm not going to play this clip, but you guys can check out if you want to on Valuetainment. James O'Keefe was recently a guest on that podcast, and he was talking about how he's been putting together some intel on Diddy, and it is something that he would like to expose at some point. He's been getting some little tidbits of information coming out.
Oh, I bet.
Is there something that you wanted to say, Luke, there? Did I
I was just
interrupt?
gonna say with that picture of him, being all he's clearly making fun of the things that he's hearing. He's like that's him laughing in Diddy's face, basically. It's basically him saying,
Right.
like, I'm not scared of you. I'll be at the playoff game tonight if you want to get me. You know, he,
Right.
he's not scared, he's not phased. He knows that somehow this information is going to get back to Diddy, in the penitentiary. So he knows
Mhm.
he's getting his information, and yeah, he's sort of rubbing it in his face right there.
Yeah, definitely. I love his sense of humor and keeping up with what he's saying. So yeah, we had Capricorn Clark testify this past week, celebrity stylist Deontay Nash, who said he witnessed Diddy beat up Cassie. Just person after person. Another former assistant called Mia, she had a very intense testimony talking about living in fear with P. Diddy. She got sexually assaulted by P. Diddy. He threatened her. She mentioned a lot of very violent accounts that he had with her, witnessed him almost killing Cassie Ventura as well. So very, very intense stuff. Should we move, Luke? Oh, before we get to Trump, actually, I wanted to play this clip for you guys. Are you familiar with Amber Rose?
Yes.
Okay. So Amber Rose, she got famous because she used to date Kanye West. She's a very beautiful woman and model. And this is her on the Club Shay Shay podcast talking about how she went to every Diddy party and never saw anything really weird. Now, we are seeing with this trial freak offs. Okay. I think there's a difference here between freak offs and the parties. Could be wrong about that. But let's listen to a little bit from her. She's talking about she never saw anything weird, apparently.
Because it seems to be like the last year and a half, there's been all this talk about these Hollywood parties.
Let's talk about it.
Amber, what's really going on?
I don't know.
You ain't never been invited to these Hollywood parties?
I've been to probably everyone.
And sorry, guys, just to preface this, okay, Amber Rose came out within the past year and publicly supported Donald Trump, President Donald Trump, after he got almost killed at his assassination attempt last July. She was at the RNC and did a public speech at the RNC. Do you remember that, Luke?
Yeah.
So
I do.
she's someone that's really risked her reputation. She's not like a normie out there. She's someone kind of on Team Freedom. Very interesting with what she's saying in this video.
I've been to every puff party. I've been to every white party since 2009. I've been to every party, and
You just go in the right room, not the wrong room.
I don't think there's room, Chad. I'm gonna be honest. Now, look, I'm gonna be very, very transparent on the show. If these freak offs are happening, it's on a completely different day than the actual puff parties.
Okay.
It's not that day because every time I was there, Puff was there the whole time. You know, he got this to rock. He's on the DJ booth. He's the host of the party. I will say that. Now, I've had this conversation with Ray J. Ray J is one of my best friends. I said, Ray, did they ever invite you to a freak off? Because they never invited me. And I done been at these parties. I just feel like, why I didn't get the invite?
Because they know you don't get down like that.
Maybe they know I don't get down like that. Okay, cool. But you would think maybe an assistant would come up and be like, hey, you like girls? Or, you know, you into... Never. No one ever asked me that. They never asked Ray J either. And me and Ray J was talking about it. We were like, I done been to the party, the after party, the after party. I'd never seen none of that stuff. But that's not to say that it does not happen or invalidate people that, but I do think it's a different day that I'm just not invited to. I don't know.
You think it's a plot because we saw it happen with Russell Simmons. Now we see it happen with P. Diddy. Do you think it is a plot or a ploy to take down prominent, high-powered black men?
I don't know. It really depends on the evidence, right? Because they did say that there were drugs in the baby oil. I don't know. That's allegedly.
Is that true? You think that Puff had 1,000 bottles of baby oil?
That's what I'm saying. I don't know because the internet is fake, like we said earlier. You just don't know. But if that is in fact true, then that is a problem. One thing I do know about Puff is that he's an abuser. You know, he abused Cassie. We all saw the video. It is not okay. And but as far as the freak offs, I don't know about that.
Did you have, when I say relationship, I don't mean intimate relationship, but did you have a relationship with Puff Daddy where you cool? Did you talk? Did you know him? Things like that?
I would say that we didn't talk on the phone and we didn't hang out, but I was always invited to the party.
Okay.
And that's the extent of our friendship.
Okay. Now, is it true that you were at the Halloween party that Puff's son and...
So that's very interesting. That
is interesting. Yeah.
Because I have heard some people, there was a woman recently interviewed on the Paranormal Files YouTube channel. There's Michael Frenese. He had that bodyguard we showed a clip of a couple weeks ago. I'm forgetting Big Daddy. No, he's called Big Homie LLC. They talked about, they were at some parties where they saw some pretty sketchy stuff. But Amber Rose, one of the biggest kind of celebrities in that rap community, she's saying, if she's telling the truth, she never saw anything at a Diddy party, which seems to be different than the freak offs. So supposedly, right? What do you think about that?
I think that's really interesting. That's the first time I've seen that video and first time I've heard her or really anybody say, you know, oh, there's nothing to see there, but
Right.
it's definitely something to consider.
Right.
And I think that, I kind of love when this type of thing happens because it shows that we're going to find out to some degree if, who's lying and who's not.
Right. Right.
And so, when you get these stark contrasts in experiences and stories, somewhere somebody's not telling the truth. So whether
Mhm.
that's her or whether that's, these other people that are now claiming that, all of this crazy shit was happening. I mean, time will tell, but
Right.
I don't know enough about Amber Rose. I remember her being at the RNC and,
Mhm.
throwing her vote behind Trump and everything like that. But
Mhm.
I also remember, when that happened, there was a lot of fuss made about her coming on and speaking at the RNC. For one, I mean, she's got
Mhm.
tattoos on her face, you know, that's typically not the demographic that, Trump or the Republicans would be going after as people with face
Mhm.
tattoos. And I do remember a couple of accounts basically, throwing a little bit of shade on that and saying, you know, she's being pushed into the limelight here for a reason,
Right.
and that she's got something that's going to be, that she's got something to hide, that something's going to come out about her. So
Mm.
I'll have to go back and take a look and see what I can find in regards to Amber Rose. But
Yeah.
yeah, interesting that, she stood right there and claimed that she's, been to all of these parties and never saw anything.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember the name of that one artist. She's, not very well known at this point, but the musician who got called in to come in and meet a prince, right? She was supposed to go and meet a
Oh,
prince.
yeah. Mhm.
Do you remember her name?
Yeah, she was shoot, I don't remember her name, but I think that's the girl that was on the Paranormal Files, wasn't it? She
It
was
might be.
basically kidnapped by a prince, and he wouldn't
Yes.
let her go, and they
Yes.
went to a P. Diddy, yeah, and he was taking her to P. Diddy,
Yeah, and there was like a
and she
freak
was
off.
saying some weird stuff.
She was saying that she, got the slippers to go in the house, and that in one corner of the house were all these kids that were dressed up and to look like adults. And
Right.
she just thought it was so weird. And then in another corner where, it's the same room, but people are over there doing
Mhm.
heroin. And
Mhm.
meanwhile, there's kids across the room that are dressed to look like adults, and that, she felt really strange. She was freaked out about it. And she, I think she didn't stay too long in the house and she left, went back
Mhm.
outside to meet up with her friends, and then kind of said, yeah, we need to get out of here.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Paraphrasing
interesting
that
because
story.
yeah, somebody asked in the comments, "Will her chart show something about it?" Yeah, her chart will definitely show something about it, and it's interesting. Intuitively, I feel right off the bat with Amber Rose that maybe she smokes a lot of weed, or maybe at these parties, she was smoking a lot of weed, and I know from personal experience, you guys, when you're high, you're not taking in the details of everything.
Mhm.
Right? So if you're high on weed and there's good music playing, you're not paying attention to the little details. I'm kind of picking this up intuitively to where I don't okay, she could totally be lying, but I'm not picking up that Amber's lying, but she's missing something because if she was supposedly at all those parties and these other people are giving just different testimonies, right?
Mhm.
She's missing some of the pieces for some reason. So
Mhm.
there's something I think, and it kind of makes sense because she's got exact Neptune in trine to her moon, which, okay, yes, that is a positive aspect, but Neptune is like drugs and things that take you outside of your body. So if you're a Pisces or you've got heavy Pisces or you've got Neptune in top aspect, you're more likely than others to maybe smoke more weed than the rest of the people or drink more than the other people or take something into where you're not going to be noticing little details at a party where there's tons of people, there's loud music. I don't know. I'm kind of picking that up. She was born exactly on a full moon in Aries. So she was literally born exactly on the full moon. Her sun is in exact opposition to the moon. So, Aries actually tends to be the most honest out of any of the signs, in my personal opinion. So yeah, I could be off, guys, but I think maybe something was clouding her at these places.
The other thing to consider is, MK Ultra mind control.
Right.
You had heard Ariana Grande recently make that comment like, oh yeah, I went to the Sunshine facility and they did the memory erasure on me. And
Yeah.
I don't remember. I'm gonna have to go back. And they were like, what? She said this like
Mhm.
casually on the red carpet. They're like, the memory erasure. She's like, yeah, the memory erasure. Like,
Oh my
like, you
God.
don't know about this? Like, yeah, we do
What
this
the
on
heck?
Sundays. But I wonder if, and you tell me, Meg, is there anything there that would
Yeah.
indicate an experience like that where perhaps her memory of these things was removed?
That's a good question. Well, she does have her sun conjunct Pluto, okay? And she does have Pluto in an opposition to her moon. So it is possible that she did go through something like that. And let's not forget, Amber Rose got famous because she was in a relationship with Kanye West,
Mhm.
okay? Who, interesting, he's also commenting on this Diddy trial, but he has some pretty different words than most, right? Have you been seeing some of the stuff that Kanye's been saying about Diddy? So this was years ago. I think this was this must have been almost 20 years ago that they were in a relationship or something like that.
Mhm.
And I think, in my personal opinion, something has definitely happened to Kanye for sure. I don't even know if I think that's the real Kanye anymore. So maybe something also happened to her,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
Yeah, Anastasia in the comments says, I was feeling drugged at parties and wiped out memories. Very good point, you guys. Yeah, I feel mentally she's missing pieces, but it's weird to see her sitting there in that interview because I don't pick up on somebody that's lying. I pick up on someone that's telling their truth, but it doesn't make sense with other people who aren't from that kind of MK Ultra celebrity culture that we've
Mhm.
seen in interviews like, holy fuck, I went to that fucking party and
Yeah.
there was like a kid, in the chair with no clothes on. It's like, okay, like you're saying, Luke, something isn't
Well,
lining
I'm
up
also a
here.
little bit suspicious of people when we're having serious discussions and you're, you know, telling me your version of a story and you won't take your sunglasses off. I get it.
Right.
You're a rock star or whatever.
Yeah,
But
or whatever.
I just pulled this up really quick. This is one account that I found. So that's Amber Rose, right? And this
Oh
is
my
a
gosh.
account called Proletario. I don't know if anybody there follows a guy named Ariel, but he does some really
Mhm.
wild deep dives on there. And I mean, I don't know. I
That's scary.
right? So
That's really scary.
she the way that she spoke sounded honest, but you know, there's that, that type of thing
Mhm.
where, you clearly were, whether you're writing it off as art or otherwise, you're kind of doing some satanic ritual shit.
Right.
You're putting out there into the public and showing off to your audience. Yeah, I don't know. Curious, definitely something
Very
to dig a little
curious.
bit deeper on.
Time will tell, and also interesting that she seems to be in our community of freedom lovers, at least that's what I like to call it. So we'll see, why is she really in that? Is she genuinely on the freedom train? Or like you're saying, Luke, is she getting on because maybe there's something else that she's trying to distract us
Mhm.
from? Right.
Yep.
And speaking of the freedom train, this past week we've had President Trump got asked in the Oval Office about whether he would pardon Diddy. Let's listen to this little clip.
They're wasting a lot of money if they're going to continue with that nonsense.
And this one's a little bit more of a page 6 question, but back when you hosted The Apprentice, you mentioned once in 2012 that Diddy was a good friend of yours back then. He has since found himself in some very serious legal trouble.
Yeah, that's true.
Would you ever consider pardoning him?
Well, nobody's asked. You had to be the one to ask, Peter, but nobody's asked. But I know people are thinking about it. I know they're thinking about it. I think some people have been very close to asking. First of all, I'd look at what's happening, and I haven't been watching it too closely, although it's certainly getting a lot of coverage. I haven't seen him. I haven't spoken to him in years. He used to really like me a lot, but I think when I ran for politics, he sort of that relationship busted up from what I read. I don't know. He didn't tell me that, but I'd read some little bit nasty statements in the paper all of a sudden. You know, it's different. You become a much different person when you run for politics and you do what's right. I could do other things, and I'm sure he'd like me, and I'm sure other people would like me, but it wouldn't be as good for our country. As we said, our country's doing really well because of what we're doing. So it's not a popularity contest. So I don't know. I would certainly look at the facts. If I think somebody was mistreated, whether they like me or don't like me, it wouldn't have any impact on me.
Mr. President,
He definitely has a way with words, doesn't he?
He does. He does. I mean, the way that he frames things and sort of puts the spotlight on a subject, but then, you know, really weaves his way in and out of it. It just leaves you going, I don't even know where he stands. Like, is he really being serious about that? Or is this all just, you know, a ploy for him to, you know, quietly say, oh yeah, he said a couple little nasty things about me. Like P. Diddy was out there being like, he's the white man and the way that he thinks is dangerous, you know, like nasty is a mild, you know, a little bit nasty is a mild way to put it. So yeah, very curious the way that he framed that discussion there.
Yeah, and that always drives me a little bit nuts as a Scorpio, but I understand when Trump goes, oh yeah, this person, you know, I might consider it, and I'm getting a lot of questions about it, and he might be a nice guy. It's like, no, it's not a nice guy. He's not a nice guy. We don't want to give him a pardon. But I know that he does leave, and I know that he's playing chess, and I know that he's saying all these words to, you know, impart wisdom to get us to look at certain things. But there is a part of me, Luke, where it drives me freaking nuts when there's this kind of talk.
Yeah,
but I understand it at the same time. Right. So that's interesting that it was brought up to President Trump's sphere. And was this last night or yesterday? I can't even keep up with the news items. We brought it up at the top of the show. Luke, let me bring up this post here. Wow. Shit's getting real. Okay. So we brought this up at the top of the show, but we need to come back to this. President Trump posted on his Truth Social, for those of you who may not have seen this post that says, there is no hashtag Joe Biden executed in 2020. Biden clones, doubles, and robotic engineered soulless, mindless entities are what you see. Democrats don't know the difference. Hashtag steal, hashtag USS Steel, hashtag MAGA, hashtag Maha. What the F?
Yeah.
So, you know, we're doing the weave here. Trump was brought up into this Diddy situation. And I think just a day or two after he commented on Diddy, now he's commenting about how the president of the United States is posting Joe Biden was executed in 2020. Clones, doubles, and robotic engineered soulless, mindless entities are what you see. Holy crap. And we have been called crazy. We've been called crazy.
Right.
For years and years and years.
For
and this stuff is going
things.
on. Right.
And you know, executed in 2020. I mean, that lines up with the whole theory and people out there saying, you know, Biden received a military grade funeral. He didn't get inaugurated. Yes. He got a military grade funeral. And if you go back and watch the Biden inauguration, quote unquote, versus Trump's inauguration, Obama's
Right.
inauguration, Clinton's inauguration. It's different. It's not
Mhm.
even close to being the same when you're really paying attention to the details. And that whole thing is about the details. It's about the ceremony. It's about, specific times that things start and end. And everything
Mhm.
about that inauguration was way off. So, yes, I think, Trump is bursting at the seams. I mean, think about it. If you're in Trump's shoes, you probably know a lot more than the average conspiracy
Mm.
theorist out there, the people like us who are connecting the dots and we're putting things together. This guy knows things factually.
Oh my
And
god.
if he is really moving things forward in the direction that we've all been talking about for the last few years, then he definitely has this knowledge and is also being forced to sit on it and like
Right.
hold things in and pretend, to have these normie conversations where
Mhm.
in reality he knows deep down that there's a bigger game at play, that there's darker things that are happening, and this guy's got to go out there and pretend like, things are like average or relatively normal.
Right.
Like he's not
Right.
trying to whip people up into a frenzy and cause, a state of emergency over, just people freaking out and commotion and that sort of thing. So
Mhm.
he's got to be really bursting at the seam, like wanting to say all this stuff. And, this year he's retweeted, retruthed, quoted a lot of um, other accounts out there that are referencing Q. That he just
Exactly.
put out another one the other day where it says he's on a mission from God, and Trump looks like the hero. He's walking down the street at midnight, and in the background is Pepe. You know,
Mhm.
the Pepe frog.
Oh
I
my
mean,
god.
you're only going to catch that and make something of it if you have been paying attention to this for so long, and you're like, wow, all right, you're actually acknowledging us right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I saw that. I think I saw that this morning. I can't keep up with all every day what comes out every day because it's so much, but I saw that. I was just like, wow, this we are here.
Mhm.
We are here,
Yes.
right? This is literally the president of the United States. And if you pay attention to what is going on, it's no joke. It's absolutely no joke. And it
Mm.
ties into P. Diddy because P. Diddy was one of these musicians that allegedly illegally got paid to support the Democratic Party, right? And recently, President Trump has been tweeting about how he wants to expose some of the recent musicians and artists that illegally got paid to promote the Democratic Party,
Mhm.
right?
And I think
So,
Bruce Springsteen was one of them as well, right?
Bruce Springsteen,
And so
yes.
this goes back to our conversation that we were having last week where we were saying, they have to tell you this stuff. It's all part of the ritual, it's part of the
Right.
ceremony, it's part of the galactic or universal law that,
Mhm.
they have to tell you what they're going to do before they do it, that sort of
Right.
thing. And, seeing how, adamant Springsteen is about, he's so anti-Trump. I mean,
Right.
the guy will pick up his guitar and go home in the middle of the concert if he doesn't like, if you're, not on his political side or cheering when he says fuck Trump or booing
Yeah.
when he says, Trump, whatever, right? So, yeah, and it reminds me of that song, um, "Hey, little girl, is your daddy home? Did he go and leave you all
Right.
alone?
No.
I got
Yeah.
a bad desire." Like,
Oh my god, yeah.
yeah, you know, and he says "little girl" in that. It's just, it's a it's a deep, dark hole.
A deep, dark wormhole, that's for sure. You also wanted to bring up, Luke, this article from The People's Voice and kind of tune into it.
Yep.
Obama lawyers up after being linked to Diddy's drug courier in sex trafficking trial.
Yeah.
What do you think of this?
You know, when I first looked at this, I was like, oh, wow, well, that's really interesting. And I'll just read a part of this from inside there. It says the explosive allegation that Obama met multiple times with Diddy's drug courier adds weight to longstanding rumors within the entertainment industry, most notably claims by Suge Knight that Diddy possesses blackmail material on Obama. Besides Obama, other celebrities named in the trial so far include Usher, Notorious B.I.G., singer Rihanna, Suge Knight, Britney Spears, Prince, and actors Michael B. Jordan and Bruce Willis. So some information here that, really had me going and looking to see if I could find other claims about this. I would imagine that if, this was mentioned in a breath of the courtroom, it would be all over the place. So definitely gives me pause to, just say, oh, wow, let's talk about that. What's next? But what I'd like to do is, let's pull some cards and see
Definitely.
if there's a there to this. Is there anything to this? Was Diddy supplying Obama with drugs? Was somebody from Obama's team meeting with somebody from Diddy's team to procure drugs? If so, that would be very interesting.
Yes. So you want to ask, is it true information?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, for sure. Such a creepy energy. I don't like tuning into Obama.
Yeah.
Interesting. Do you want to share first?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I got the Lovers again.
Ooh.
Right side up. The Two of Cups.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the Two of Cups right side up. I mean, this is a political card. This is a card. I mean, it really speaks for itself. These are two people coming together, sharing their wealth, sharing something between one another. And the snakes on the staff, if that's what you want to call them there, are very intertwined like a DNA strand. So I'm taking that as a soft yes. The information is true. And it was sort of put out there from a safe place, but is bringing us through a gateway where there's a long road. There's a lot to discuss here about this. And it's going to be its own journey. But for now, it's sort of been floated out there in a soft disclosure way. And maybe that's why it's only being, mentioned or seen by that one outlet, the People's Voice.
Right.
And this leads to some downfall.
Wow.
So the Queen of Cups, this being, a very emotional card, this is going to stir up a lot of negative emotion, a lot of, I want to say bad blood between the two camps, whether or not this information, people, the way that it's being framed, how it is being framed, how it's being disclosed is true or not. Ultimately, I'm getting the sense that this is going to lead to a downfall in the Obama camp, sort of turning their life upside down a bit. And with that Queen of Cups, perhaps that's even indicative of that being somebody like Michelle being, tied in or very, very affected, very upset by this revelation.
Yeah, definitely. Anastasia here says, Trump said all roads lead to Obama. The trail goes deeper for exposure. That's why so many are dying or getting cancer suddenly. Hard to be around humans are freaking out. That is for sure. Very good point, Anastasia. Okay, this is interesting, Luke, because I've pulled some cards, but I'm kind of being a little overwhelmed with the feeling of Obama of I feel like my head has been split into two and like I'm two different. There's one part that's dead. How do I explain this? There's one part that's dead, but then there's another part that is living and fractured. And some of you guys may think I'm nuts for saying this, but this goes back to the clone thing. So I feel like it's possible that Obama may be one of these clones. And, you know, if you do your conspiracy research, this is not that's not even that woo, right? The concept of a clone.
Right.
There's some things that are even weirder than that. So it's weird that as we're asking this question, which has to do with was he a part of drugs? I guess that's the question that we were asking. Is this topic of what he might be needing to get lawyers for true? It's like I'm getting this splitting and my head is splitting in two. So I wonder why I'm feeling that so strong and also getting the Two of Pentacles. So it's like two different things, two different options. The number two as well. I can't remember what Obama's sign is, but it's making me feel almost like a Gemini energy in its negative aspect. This is somebody who's fractured and there's more than one I'm picking up. Also got the Hermit reversed. So I feel like there's a lot trying to hide this information. But I'm getting the feeling that as we go into July, and this would kind of make sense with the trial does get extended, we're going to be going into July, which is when Uranus changes signs out of Taurus into Gemini. Okay, the first week of July, which is going to be, that's when the weird shit is going to start. Okay, so we have seen nothing yet. And I get chills when I say that. We've been in Pluto and Aquarius since the end of November, full on 2024. Okay, but Uranus is the dispositor of Pluto. Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius, and it's been at fallen Taurus. Once Uranus goes into Gemini, where he's way faster, way smoother moving, he likes to be there. This is when the weirdness of Pluto Aquarius is going to come forward. And there's going to be really weird secrets revealed where this might start to get into the trial somehow. Some of these weird woo-woo subjects might actually start to get into the trial, is what I'm picking. Is what I'm saying making sense, Luke? Because sorry, I'm feeling some things very intensely right now. I hope I'm making sense.
Yeah, I'm following what you're saying here. And I totally am with you on that, because I think that where the prosecution for this trial needs to go is like, if you've ever, made a big snowman in the back of your yard. I remember when I was a kid, we do snowmen in my backyard every year, and we had this huge yard. And so when we started our snowball, you got to have your base, your biggest ball's got to be on the bottom. We would start our snowball by pushing a little ball up the hill, because it's lighter, it's easier. And then, on the back half, you're pushing it down the hill and it's getting bigger and bigger and, gaining more momentum. And I think that the prosecution is now going to be on the back half of this trial, pushing the snowball down the hill, and things are going to pick up. It's going to get heavier, and more weirdness may come into play here. So, story. I mean, I would hope that we hear something regarding the children for the children's sake. Not that I want to hear those stories, but for the sake of that disclosure to come out. I would love to see that become something that gets touched on here, and the element of, the discussion, the rumors, the long-standing rumors about Diddy being involved in, the 86ing of some of these other artists over the last 2 or 3 decades. And was that ever something that was discussed or came up in your conversations as to why, Cassie and all these other women, these people that have been involved, were afraid of Diddy because they heard he kills people? Is that an element of this here?
Yeah, for sure. This is wild, wild stuff. Gemma says June, July, August are going to blow our minds. Yes, they are absolutely going to blow our minds. And John says cocaine in the White House. Okay, thank you for saying that, John, because I feel like that's part of that hermit reverse, that Page of Cups reverse. It's like there's information that certain forces really don't want out there because that will be the smoking gun.
Yeah.
We're talking about cocaine in the White House.
Right.
We're
With the
talking about
auto
clones. What's that?
with the auto pen.
With the
So
auto pen? Oh my God, with the auto pen. Yeah.
were people high on cocaine and signing off on documents as the president using the auto pen? Just can you imagine you're snorting lines there in the White House to begin with, and you're like, yeah, let's get the auto pen out. We'll
Yeah.
fix all of this right now. It's a meeting of the minds.
Oh my goodness. Irma says Big Mike upset.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
We'll
that's
see.
what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Is there anything we didn't cover yet, Luke, that you want to bring up before we kind of round up today's show?
Let's take one look at Trump and how much is he really paying attention to this?
Good question.
Because he made that
Yeah.
little comment. We don't really know what's behind it. Let's take a little look at what is Trump's perspective of this trial. Is Trump really, how much attention is Trump paying to this? And what is his personal opinion on that?
Yes. Okay. Awesome. Interesting.
You want to go first?
Sure. Okay, this is really interesting. So we're starting off with the Six of Swords reversed, moving out of troubled waters, but it's reversed. And also the Hermit upright. So Trump is the Hermit upright. We got the Hermit reverse. Sorry, you guys, it's not wanting to close it. So I feel like he's looking at this from behind the scenes very carefully, very from a hermit place. He's being a hermit about the fact that he's keeping up with it. Nine of Pentacles, I feel like, yes, this is very valuable information that he's keeping up with. But this is interesting. The Six of Swords reverse makes me feel like there's something like we're never going back after this trial. We're never going back. We're at a turning point where I feel like it may be about to flip to this, but it's kind of what the message I was getting earlier, like it is being watched very carefully to see, okay, are we ready to put this thing out now? And are we ready to put this layer out? And can they handle this thing now? So we're still kind of in this place of, okay, it's week 4. We're hearing the same thing over and over again, but where's the really juicy part of it? Right. I feel like that's being managed from a team behind the scenes. Right. And I think Trump's a part of that.
Yes, I agree. I got the victory card here. So we got the Six of Wands here. I think Trump's looking at this as like, oh, this is good. This is so juicy. It's like when you know your opponent has just made a huge mistake and you are just going to capitalize on it. I think he's enjoying this. I think he's relishing in it, and you know, whatever he is paying attention to in regards to this, he is looking at this as a major victory for him and his team to charge forward. And perhaps there's even points in this trial that as certain things are being released and disclosed, his team is making decisions and moves on what's the next piece of information that they are going to release, right? You know, it's a good time to drop the Pepe in the background meme when there's a lot of information that's shocking and distracting over here in regard to this very high profile trial, and meanwhile he can put out Pepe memes in the background, and he can drop his Q hints, and he can go out and he can say, oh yeah, by the way, Joe Biden was executed in 2020. He's a clone. He's a robot. Democrats can't tell the difference. So he is charging ahead. And then I got the King of Swords in reverse. And this has me a little bit perplexed here, because if it were right side up, I would say, the information here is sharply going to be coming out in the affirmative. But maybe this points to the King of Swords being in reverse, to this information being very negative, right? And while the information is very negative, right, and the stories are terrible,
right,
it's still cause for a victory lap in the grand scheme of things, because it's a war that we're in, right? It's a long-standing battle. It is a war of ideas, information, and misinformation. And in spite of the fact that the information that's coming out is very bad, it's very damning, it's very negative, it's it lacks integrity. It's enough for them to go, yes, full steam ahead, charge.
Right. Charge. Wow. I love that. This is powerful. I'm excited to see what's to come. We're halfway through.
Yeah.
And thank you guys so much for joining us. We'll be back next Sunday as well at 4 p.m. Eastern to go over week 5 of the P. Diddy trial. And I don't know yet. Have you heard, is it confirmed that he's going to be taking the stand or not, Diddy?
I don't think that that's been confirmed, but there's a lot of people out there saying he's not going to be able to get out of these charges if he doesn't take a stand and say his piece.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Right, for sure. It is going to be a very interesting movie to watch. And you guys can check out Luke and I's links in the description box below. Luke has his book, Confessions of a Conspiracy Theorist. Don't forget to take your red pills out on Amazon. And also, Sunny and I have our new astrological crystal kits available. Why isn't my slide working? Shoot, there we go. Over at thescorplingshop.com. So we're just launching that today. We're very, very excited. You can awaken the magic of your sign with crystal healing. We're going to be talking more and more about the crystals on our channels coming up. And you can use code ASTROCRYSTAL to get 10% off one of the crystal kits. So we'll be talking about that more coming up. Luke, thank you for joining me. Thank you for another awesome show on the P. Diddy trial. And we'll see you guys all next week. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Love you guys.